Today we're focusing on marine animals without a backbone, also known as invertebrates. These creatures represent the vast majority of life on Earth, and the ocean is full of them in every possible shape and form. From simple filter feeding sponges to highly specialized predators like squids, invertebrates show us the incredible range and strategies of life has developed to survive in the sea. As we move through the topic, keep in mind how each group not only survives but also contributes to the balance and function of marine ecosystems. This might surprise you, but nearly 97% of all animals on Earth are invertebrates. That means when you picture animal diversity, you should be thinking about creatures like sponges, corals, worms, mollusks, and crustaceans, not just the familiar fish or mammals. Many of these groups are entirely marine, which make the ocean a kind of living museum of animal diversity. So, what makes an animal an animal? All animals are eukaryotic and multicellular, and most go beyond just tissues into having organs and full body systems. Unlike plants, animals are heterotrophic, meaning they can't make their own food, so they need to eat other animals or organisms to survive. Most require oxygen and most move at least at some point in their life cycles. Think of a sponge larva that swim around before settling. When it comes to plants, symmetry tells us a lot. Radial symmetry is like a wheel with parts radiating out from a central point, good for creatures that don't move much. Bilateral symmetry is more about streamlining the direction typical of active movers. And then there are the outliers, like sponges that are asymmetrical, breaking the mold altogether. Now let's zoom out. All major animal phyla, the big categories of animal life, have marine representatives, and some are entirely marine. For example, sponges, cnidaria, and comb jellies don't have any land cousins. These groups include some of the simplest animal forms, but also some of the most fascinating in terms of survival strategies. The ocean is just like a testing ground for animal evolution, and every phyla represents a different experiment in how to feed, move, and reproduce. As we continue, you'll see the lineup of other groups: mollusks, arthropods, echinoderms, and even some primitive chordates. Many of these are the ones students find most familiar: octopuses, crabs, sea stars. But there's the kicker. Every one of these groups comes with its own specialized body plan and set of tricks. Some groups are filter feeders, others are predators, others build reefs. So as we go through the phylum by phylum, think of each one as unlocking a different strategy for survival in the marine world. Let's begin with the simplest of them all, the sponges, or porifera. They don't have true tissue or organs, yet they manage to thrive by being some of the ocean's most effective filter feeders. A sponge is basically a colony of specialized cells working together using choanocytes with little flagella pulling water through, trapping food particles and keeping the whole system running. Water flows in through tiny pores and out through larger openings, carrying not just food but also waste and other gametes. Sponges may seem passive, but they are the powerhouse of filtration, cleaning enormous volumes of seawater every day. You can think of them as the ocean's living Brita filters, quietly maintaining water quality and recycling nutrients. Sponges may look simple, but they have some of the most fascinating adaptations. For support, they rely on their either a protein called spongin or tiny mineral structures called spicules, which can look like tiny glass rods or stars. The reproduction is just as clever. They can reproduce asexually through budding, where a small piece grows into a new sponge, or sexually by releasing sperm into the water to capture by another sponge. Many are hermaphrodites, producing both egg and sperm, which increases their chances of survival. Even though they lack tissues, organs, and symmetry, sponges demonstrate how life doesn't need complexity to be successful. It just needs a good strategy. Now let's move on to the cnidarians, the jellyfish, corals, and anemones. These animals all share radial symmetry, which allow them to interact with their environment from all sides. They have two main body forms: the medusa, which is the free-floating with tentacles and hanging downwards, by the polyp, which is attached to the surface, tentacles reaching upwards. Their bodies are built of two layers of tissues, with the epidermis on the outside and the gastrodermis on the inside, specialized for digestion. Even though they don't have organs or brain, cnidarians are remarkably successful, dominating ecosystems from coral reefs to open waters. What really sets cnidarians apart is their nematocysts, which are the stinging cells located on the tentacles. Each nematocyst is like a tiny harpoon fired to capture prey or ward off predators. It's a brilliant evolutionary weapon that made them both feared and respected in their marine world. Their digestive system is incomplete, a simple sac with only one opening that functions as both the mouth and the anus. Instead of a central brain, they use a nerve net, a diffuse network that coordinates movement. In jellyfish, this allows pulsation of the bell in responses to stimuli, enough to let them swim and hunt effectively. Cnidarians are the most fascinating life cycles that often includes both asexual and sexual stages. In many species, the medusa stage produces eggs and sperm and combine into a zygote, which develop into a free-swimming planula larva. This larva eventually settles and develops into a polyp, which can produce asexually, often by budding. These polyps may later produce new medusa, completing the cycle. It's a beautiful example of alternations between two body forms, each stage perfectly adapted to different parts of the life cycle. One major group of cnidarians is the hydrozoans. Most form colonies of small polyps, but some develop reproductive medusas as well. A famous example is the Portuguese man of war, which looks like a jellyfish but is actually a floating colony of specialized polyps, each handling a specific job like feeding or defense. The gas-filled float keeps it at the surface, while long tentacles armed with nematocysts trail below, capable of delivering painful stings. Hydrozoans remind us that sometimes what looks like one animal is actually a highly organized colony working together. Scyphozoans are what most people think of when you hear the word jellyfish. These are the classic sea jellies, with large pulsating medusa and very tiny, often overlooked polyps. Even though they can contract their bellies to swim, they are mostly at the mercy of the currents, drifting across the oceans as part of the plankton. Their tentacles, armed with stinging cells, trail below to capture prey like small fishes and plankton. It's amazing to think that something with no brain and no bones can still thrive as predators in the open ocean. Next are the cubomedusa, or box jellies. These creatures are small but very dangerous, armed with some of the most potent nematocysts in the animal kingdom. A sting from certain species can be fatal to humans. What makes them even more remarkable is their level of sensory adaptability. Unlike most jellyfish, box jellies have complex eyes that allow them to detect light and shape. This makes them more active hunters, capable of maneuvering towards prey instead of passively drifting. Anthozoans include corals, sea anemones, and gorgonians, like sea fans. These organisms exist only in polyp form. There is no medusa stage here. Corals are particularly important because many species secrete calcium carbonate skeletons that build up over generations to form coral reefs. Some are the most biodiverse habitats on Earth. Most reef-building corals have symbiotic algae called zooxanthellae, which provide them with energy through photosynthesis. This partnership is one of the best examples of cooperation in nature, where both partners benefit and the entire ecosystem depends on their success. Comb jellies might look like jellyfish, but they're actually completely different groups. Instead of stinging cells, they use long, sticky tentacles to capture prey. Their name comes from the row of ciliary combs that beat in coordinated waves, creating a shimmering rainbow of light as they move through the water. These combs not only propel them from forward, but also make some of the most mesmerizing animals to watch in the plankton. Even though they're delicate with transparent, they are efficient predators of plankton and play a big role in the ocean's food web. Flatworms make a big evolutionary step with bilateral symmetry and central nervous system, complete with a simple brain. Their body's design allows for direct movement and more complex behaviors. Some are free-living in marine environments, while others are parasites like flukes and tapeworms. They have an incomplete digestive system with only one opening, but they're still effective feeders. What's fascinating is how this relatively simple body plan paved the way for the most complex bilateral animals that followed. Ribbon worms are fascinating because of their unique hunting tool, the proboscis. This long, extendable tube can shoot out and entangle prey, often worms or small crustaceans. Unlike flatworms, ribbon worms have a complete digestive system with both a mouth and an anus, which is a major evolutionary upgrade. They also have a circulatory system, making them more complex internally. And get this, one species can actually grow up to 30 meters long, making it the largest invertebrate known, longer than any blue whale. Nematodes, or roundworms, are incredibly abundant. They have bilateral symmetry and a complete digestive tract, plus hydrostatic skeleton, which is fluid in the body cavity that gives them the shape and allows them to move. Some are free living in sediment, while many are parasites. You may have heard of Anisakis, which is a nematode parasite that can be transmitted to humans if raw or undercooked fish is eaten. With possibly hundreds of thousands of species, nematodes are literally everywhere, shaping food webs in any way we're only beginning to understand. Arrowworms are sleek, transparent predators that look almost like tiny torpedoes. With fins and a tail, they can dart quickly to grab prey, mostly planktonic crustacean and fish larvae. Even though they're small, they are voracious hunters, and they're found in every ocean. Arrowworms are a reminder that even in microscopic scale, the oceans are full of predators and prey locked in constant interactions. Segmented worms introduce the idea of a segmented body plan, which is a major evolutionary innovation, internally and externally. Their bodies are divided into repeated units. This allows for more efficient movement and specialization of body regions. They have a well-developed nervous system, a closed circulatory system, and a true body cavity called a coelom, which is lined with mesoderm tissue. These features put them much closer to the complexity of higher animals. Polychaetes are the largest and most diverse group of marine annelids, with about 10,000 species. Each body segment has a parapodia, which are fleshy extensions often equipped with gills and bristles called septae. They can be free-living predators, burrowed that feed on organic matter in the sediment, or tube dwellers that filter feed. Many produce a trochophore larva, an important planktonic stage that links them evolutionarily to other invertebrates, like mollusks. Polychaetes really showcase the diverse possibility with a segmented body plan. Bearded worms are some of the strangest annelid relatives. They live in the deep sea and completely lack a digestive system. Instead, they use long tentacles to absorb dissolved nutrients directly from water, and many host symbiotic bacteria that provide them with energy. This is the same strategy that allows giant tube worms near hydrothermal vents to survive in total darkness. Ecurians may look like unsegmented worms, but they are close cousins to annelids. They use a non-retractable spoon-shaped proboscis to scoop up sediment and feed on deposit feeders. Some burrow in soft bottoms, while others actually live inside corals. While not flashy, they play a key role in turning over sediment and recycling nutrients, which helps maintain healthy benthic ecosystems. Peanut worms are small, soft-bodied invertebrates named because they contract into a peanut-like shape when disturbed. They have a retractable proboscis used for feeding, and most are deposit feeders, burrowing in soft sediment. Even though they're not well known, they're an important part of shallow water habitats, helping to churn and aerate the sediment, much like earthworms do on land. Now we shift into the largest and most successful invertebrate group, the mollusks. With nearly 100,000 known species, this group includes snails, clams, squids, and octopuses. Their basic body plan has three parts: a head, foot for movement, a visceral mass containing internal organs, and a mantle that often secretes a calcium carbonate shell. Many have a radula, which is a ribbon-like structure used for feeding, from raising algae to drilling into most prey. Mollusks also boast a well-developed nervous system, and in cephalopods this reaches extraordinary complexity. Gastropods are the largest class of mollusks and include familiar animals like snails, limpets, abalone, and sea slugs. The name gastropod means stomach foot because the body is twisted so that the internal organs sit over the foot. Many have cold shells, though sea slugs have lost them entirely. Most graze on algae using their radula, but some are predators that are bore into other animal shells or capture prey. Nudibranches, for example, are brilliantly colored sea slugs that can even incorporate stinging cells from cnidarians in their own tissues as defense. Bivalves include clams, mussels, oysters, scallops, and even shipworms. Their bodies are laterally compressed and enclosed within two shells, or valves, hinged together. Unlike gastropods, they don't have a head or radula. Instead, they're specialized filter feeders, pulling in water through siphons, filtering out food within their gills, and releasing clean water back into the environment. Some, like clams, burrow into the sand using their muscular foot, while others, like oysters and mussels, cement themselves on the surface. Scallops can even clap their shells together to swim away from other predators. Cephalopods include octopuses, squids, cuttlefish, and nautiluses are the stars of the molluscan world. Their name means headfoot because their tentacles are really a modified foot that surrounded the head. They're fast, active predators using jet propulsion to move by expelling water through their siphon. Cephalopods have a beak-like jaw and a radula to shred prey. What makes them truly extraordinary is their nervous system. They have large brains, complex eyes comparable to ours, and remarkable learning and problem-solving abilities. Many can change colors and textures instantly using chromatophores, making them masters of camouflage and communication. Chitin are often overlooked mollusks, but they're fascinating in their own right. Their bodies are flattened and covered with 8 dorsal plates, giving them flexibility as they cling tightly to rock surfaces in the intertidal zone. On the other side, a broad muscular foot allows them to grip rocks and even as waves crash over them. Using their radula, they scrape algae and other food from the surface they crawl across. Many seem humble compared to cephalopods, but they are well adapted to life on wave-swept shores. Now let's move on to the arthropods, the most successful phylum on Earth, making up about 75% of all species. In the ocean, their representatives are mainly crustacean. Arthropods are characterized by their jointed appendages and an external skeleton made up of chitin. Because of the exoskeleton doesn't grow with them, they must periodically shed it in a process called molting. This phyla showcases the power of modular design. The segmentation of their bodies into specialized regions like the head, thorax, and abdomen allows an incredible diversity of form and function. Crustaceans dominate the marine arthropods, from the tiny copepod to the large crab and lobsters. They typically have 2 pairs of antennae, gills for gas exchange, and a body divided into segments, with the head and thorax often fused into a cephalothorax, covered by a protective carpe. Their appendages are highly specialized, some for feeding, some for swimming, some for carrying eggs. Reproduction is usually direct sperm transfer, which helps ensure fertilization in the marine environment. Crustaceans play nearly every role you can imagine: filter feeding, scavengers, predators, and even parasites. Horseshoe crabs are living fossils, ancient creatures that have changed very little for hundreds of millions of years. They have 5 pairs of walking legs, with the first pair in males modified for mating. Each spring, they come ashore in large numbers to lay eggs in the sandy beaches, providing a vital food source for a majority of birds. They live in the shallow waters, burrowing in soft sediment, and feed on worms and other invertebrates. Despite their name, they are more closely related to spiders and scorpions than to crabs. Sea spiders, or pycnogonadids, look spindly and alien, with long jointed legs and a small thin body. They use their proboscis to suck out juices from soft-bodied animals like anemones or hydrozoans. Most are tiny, but some deep sea species can reach impressive sizes. They're the most common in cold water, but are found worldwide. Even though they don't look like typical arthropods, they remind us of just how much variety exists within the successful phylum. Bryozoans, sometimes called moss animals, form colonies that look like encrusting mats, tiny fans, or miniature trees. Each individual zooid in the colony is only about half a millimeter long, but together they form a complex community. They are suspension feeders, using a crown of ciliated tentacles called lophophores to draw in food particles. Echinoderms are one of the most distinctive marine groups, with about 7,000 exclusive marine species. They're unique in having a pentamerous radial symmetry as adults, based on 5 parts, though their larvae are bilateral symmetrical. They also have a water vascular system with 2 feet used for movement and feeding. Instead of a brain, they rely on a decentralized nervous network, and they possess an internal skeleton of calcium carbonate plates. Many echinoderms can regenerate lost arms or even entire bodies, making them masters of resilience. Sea stars or asteroids are iconic echinoderms. They have a central disc with 5 or more arms and are on their internal organs extended into those arms. Their 2 feet allow them to move and pry open the shells of bivalves, making them effective predators. Pedicellarius, these are tiny pincer-like structures on the skin, help their bodies free of debris and parasites. With their tiny skin and flexible skeletons, sea stars are well adapted to life on the seafloor and play a key role as top vertebrate predators in many ecosystems. Brittle stars look like sea stars, but they're built differently. They have a small central disc with long, thin, highly flexible arms. Unlike sea stars, their internal organs are restricted to the disc, not onto the arms. Their 2 feet don't have any suckers, so they are mostly used for feeding rather than locomotion. Many brittle stars feed on detritus or small organisms sweeping particles towards their mouth. They can also shed arms when threatened, distracting predators, which is a survival trick that gives them their name. Sea urchins and sand dollars are echinoderms with rigid skeletons called a test, made from fused plates. They move using both their 2 feet and long, movable spines. Sea urchins are often grazers, scraping algae and detritus from surfaces with specialized jaw structures called Aristotle's lanterns. Sea dollars are flatter and adapted for burrowing in sandy habitats. Sea cucumbers look like worms, but they're echinoderms too. Their bodies are elongated with 2 feet mostly concentrated on one side. They feed as deposit feeders, swallowing sediment and extracting organic matter as it passes through their digestive tract. A strange defense mechanism they have is evisceration, expelling their internal organs when disturbed. Amazingly, they can regenerate these organs later. Despite their odd appearance, sea cucumbers are vital in recycling nutrients on the ocean floor. Crinoids, also known as sea lilies and feather stars, are some of the oldest echinoderms. They have feathery arms used for suspension feeding, capturing plankton from the water. Sea lilies attach to the bottom by a stalk, while feather stars are free-moving and often perch on coral reefs. Though they may look delicate, they are effective filter feeders and add beauty to diversity to reefs and deep sea environments. Finally, we have the hemichordates, which share some traits with chordates, our own phylum. They have a pharyngeal gill slit and hollow central nerve cord. Key features also seen in early chordates. The best known hemichordates are the acorn worms, which are deposit feeders using a proboscis to scoop sediments. They may not be as famous as sea stars or crabs, but they're important because they bridge the gap in understanding how early chordates features evolved. Chordates are our own phylum, but not all chordates have backbones. In fact, there are 2 groups of invertebrate chordates, the tunicates and the lancelets. All chordates, at least during embryonic development, share 4 traits: a hollow dorsal nerve cord, a notochord for support, pharyngeal gill slits, and a postanal tail. These features are like the blueprints that vertebrates must later modified. Studying these invertebrates groups gives us the insight into how early chordates paved the way for the evolution of fish and eventually us. Tunicates, also known as sea squirts, are strange but important chordates. Their larvae look like little tadpoles and have the chordate features, but once they settle down, they lose most of those traits and become sessile filter feeders encased in a protective outer layer called a tunic. They pump water through their body to extract food. They remind us of the evolution is not adaptations, not holding on to its traits you don't need. Tunicates are simple as adults, but their larval stage tell the story of their chordate heritage. Scalps are close relatives of tunicates, but they remain planktonic through their entire lives. They have transparent barrel-shaped bodies and move by pumping water through themselves. Some form long chains of individual drifting together in the ocean. Scalps are efficient filter feeders, clearing massive amounts of plankton from the water. They show us how some basic body plans can adapt for very different lifestyles compared to sea squirts.